Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. 2025 is upon us, first weekend perspective of the year, and good to be back. Appreciate everybody letting us have a weekend off from the perspectives to kind of catch up with family and, kind of wind down for the year. So hope everybody had a good end of year. Hope you had good holidays, good chance to meet with family, maybe get on vacation a little bit, get away from work and do all those things that kind of get you recharged and let you have some new perspective on things. So excited to be back, excited to be jumping into 2025. And one of the things that we like to do, we do this maybe every couple of years. We never know who our audience is going to be. This could be your first podcast. This could be the first time you listen to the Cloudcast. This could be the 886th time you're listening to the Cloudcast or somewhere in between. So we appreciate you no matter what. But one of the things that we try and do at the beginning of the year is provide some perspective, since both Aaron and I have been around the block, if so to say. And we wanted to kind of provide some insight into how we think about going into a new year, because at least from a company perspective, maybe not necessarily, it always applies to your life. Everybody's life's a little bit different. Everybody's at a different stage in life. And, January 1st doesn't necessarily always mean a reset of the things you're doing in life. But from a business perspective, whether your business is a private business or a public business, January 1st, January of the year in most cases, sort of resets the year. It resets the priorities for the leadership team. It resets, in some cases, the priorities and the focus for the business. If nothing else, it resets the scoreboard for things like revenues and expenses and goals and all that kind of stuff. So, it's one of those times when there are certain activities and certain actions that we found are helpful when, from a business perspective, from a company perspective, things are resetting. They're starting anew. You're getting into a new year, because there's a lot that goes on. And again, this is where you sort of have to understand both where you fit in, as well as, what's important to the people that you work with, what's important to the people that are your leadership team, your managers, your vice presidents, your senior vice presidents, all those sort of things. Because what you find is at the beginning of the year, because everything resets, it sort of resets everybody's priorities. And once again, it sort of gets them having to have this split brain thing between what's in the best interest of that person, the individual. So they could be thinking about their company bonus. They could be thinking about their quota for the year. If they're in something like sales, they could be thinking about their budgets for the year. They could be thinking about where am I in the pecking order, the priority order for the company? Am I working on something that's considered really important? Am I working on something that just recently seems like it got degraded to something that's less than important? Maybe you were more important the year before. So there's a lot of that goes on. And then obviously from an individual perspective, people are thinking about somewhat the same sort of things, right? Like, am I working on projects that are, highly prioritized, highly valuable? Do I understand what's considered valuable in the company? How am I going to get paid this year? Did my insurance change for the year? All those sort of things go on with people. So it's important to sort of think about, okay, how do we blend those two things together between stuff that's directly important to you and things that are going to be important to a bigger set of people, but what their actions take may have impact on what you do. So sort of calling this one reflections, resolutions, and beginning of the year type of way of thinking about things. So I broke this down into like 6 or 7 different areas. Thought we'd talk about all these individually and kind of give some suggestions on hopefully how to be successful with them, or at least how to avoid some common mistakes that we've all run into in the past. So first thing I had on the list was general stuff. This is sort of the things that we do every year around New Year's or around the end of December when you've got some downtime. And that's just sort of the general stuff, right? Get rid of clutter, clean up your office a little bit, try and get rid of things that are getting in your way, that are going to, distract you and so forth. Set some goals, however you prefer to set goals. Some people love to set goals. Others dread it beyond belief. I'm one of those ones who really doesn't love setting goals, at least really big goals. But anyways, do some of those things. Again, they're all sort of depends on the person. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. First thing I've got on my list this year, and this is something that I will say over the years has not always been the biggest priority for me, and sometimes because had kids or just because, kind of forgot about making your priority or whatever. But as you get a little bit, older, and you'll see this as you get into your 30s, into your 40s, into your 50s, and so forth. There'll be plenty of days when you wake up and you're like, "Oh, that hurts. That didn't hurt yesterday." Or why why are things different than they were? So, first thing I got on my list is health, right? And I can't, Aaron and I would both sort of probably put this in the top of our list as 1A and 2 and so forth. Make it a daily priority. Make your health a daily priority, whether it is what you're eating, because our industry as a whole is not, I don't want to say it's not the healthiest industry, but it is a high stress industry. It is a long hours industry. There is a lot of sitting, whether you are writing software or you are in meetings or you are traveling a lot. There's a lot of stationary activities. It's not an industry where we're out, doing things active in nature 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So figure out ways to make your health a daily priority, whether that is as simple as making sure that every day you do a certain amount of physical exercise, right? Get out and go for a walk, take the dog for a walk, go for a walk in between meetings around your building, your neighborhood, whatever that might be. Could be as simple as, finding some 5-minute, 10-minute sort of stretching movement exercises you can do right at your desk in between meetings, or even you turn the camera off, turn your microphone off, and do some of those things during meetings. It's those little things that you can do every single day that are going to start to add up. Your body's going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. Again, what you're eating. I don't want to make any sort of recommendations. I know people have all sorts of things that they perspective on what's the right thing for them to eat. But in terms of sort of doing things that are physically active, and again, they can be as simple as just moving around, getting up out of your chair every 30 minutes, 60 minutes, going for a walk for 15 minutes, blocking out time on your calendar that you can just put, busy work, and you go for a walk, and maybe you listen to a podcast, or you listen to a phone call or something. But I can't stress enough, that's why I put it first on the list. Make your health a priority. Make and any sort of daily routine a priority. You will find that even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day here and there, some stretching here and there, some things to enhance your muscles or whatever it might be, those things are going to pay off. And the longer you're in this industry, unfortunately, the more stress tends to come with it, and you want to find ways to sort of mitigate and manage that. Okay, let's dive into some stuff that's going to be related to your jobs more so than anything, and how you can kind of be involved with them. And these are kind of important things to be involved with, and they're really kind of important at the early part of the year. So I'm going to highlight them in that context. So first and foremost, we mention this all the time on the show. While the technology is always interesting, being able to sort of follow the money, know where money comes from in our industry, whether those are budgets that your company puts together in order to be able to go do activities that you do have to do, or whether it's revenues that come into your business because of the goods and services that you sell, whatever those things might be. Understand sort of the money of your business, right? And first and foremost thing that you probably most have to understand is budgets, right? What are the budgets going to look like that impact the work that you do? How are the budgets being allocated across your group? How are budgets being allocated and prioritized across your company? And that's going to help you understand, where does the business have priorities? Where is the business investing ahead of something? Where is the business putting money to sustain something? And you really just you want to, as best you can, ask questions about this, right? You're not necessarily going to always get answers of, why did this group get more money than another group? Why exactly was this amount of money allocated to something? You're always going to feel like there wasn't enough money allocated towards whatever is important to you. And that's just kind of the way budgets work. Budgets, at the end of the day, tend to become a gigantic negotiation. A lot of trade-offs are made. A lot of, what's good in the short term, what's good in the long term, all those sort of things. But it's really good to sort of just have an understanding of what they look like, and most importantly, how they're going to impact you, right? And the second thing, the reason I say that it's important to sort of understand it from a bigger picture perspective is, if you look at the things that you're working on, and maybe you look at those and you go, if I don't get these things done, if these things aren't done to a certain quality, if they're not done within a certain time, that's going to impact me from a personal perspective, right? Like, you may not be able to make your goals. You may not be able to make your bonuses. You may not be able to make your quotas. You may not be able to make whatever those things are that you get measured on that impact your ability to earn money to take care of your family. You want to start thinking about, okay, if if you don't think the right budget was allocated towards you, where was the budget allocated and where are there opportunities for you to start thinking about partnering with some of those groups, right? Are there opportunities that don't seem maybe necessarily direct line of sight, it works just for this thing that we've got to do, but are there sort of 1+1=3 opportunities? Are there opportunities to work with some groups that look like they may have bigger budgets that maybe if you both worked on something, maybe you can create some things out of that maybe they pay for more of it. Maybe you do a little more of the work because you've got some expertise in it. You want to start looking at those partnership opportunities. And again, this is why it's important to ask the question just to understand how your company is allocating money, allocating budgets. Now, the second part of this, and this is always important, the first part of the year, budgeting is this very weird process, and it's all dependent upon the company, and every company does it a little bit differently. If you logically thought about it, you would think, okay, the leadership team must have thought about this and been thinking about this for the last number of months or maybe even a number of quarters. I'm sure they allocated all of this knowing what numbers they had coming down the road. We have to make this much revenue for the year. They probably have already worked out what the budgets are going to be by the first of the year, because if they haven't worked that out, how is anybody going to get anything done? And that's the logical, rational way of thinking about it. The reality is, in most companies, again, whether you're allocating out sales quotas or whether you're allocating out budgets for teams or some combination of those sort of things, you typically don't know exactly what those are, sometimes until many months into the year. And it's not unusual that budgets aren't finalized until February, March. I've seen it into, certain parts of the year. I've seen it get revised at the mid part of the year. So budgets are a very fluid thing, right? And it's important to understand sort of where they are, how stabilized are they at any given point, say in January. And if you don't know what the number is, at least, sometimes you'll ask your manager what the number is and they'll go, well, it's not finalized yet. And so that's when you want to start asking them, okay, directionally, where do you think we're going to be? Do you think we're going to be about the same as last year? Do you think we're going to get a little more than last year? Do you think we're going to get a little less or a lot less? So you want to start asking some sort of directional questions about if it's not finalized, where do you think it's going to be? Because usually the managers will have a sense of where they think it's going to be, because again, you're in negotiation, you're in sort of horse trading, you're in swapping, and all those sort of things. And so they have a sense of like, okay, this is where we started, right? And this is what we're still sort of fighting for. This is what we're still negotiating. But they'll typically have a sense of like, it'll be more than last year, it'll be less than last year, it'll be about the same as last year. And sometimes you just sort of need to know directionally what that looks like, because again, your budgets typically are going to be allocated for the whole year. The other thing you want to know, third thing you might want to know is, are the budgets going to be allocated equally throughout the year? Because in some cases, for example, like I've seen situations, let's say you've got a project that is some new innovation, some new project rolling out, and you'll go, okay, cool. Like, how are we going to make this happen? We have these big goals set for us, whether it's, to roll out a new product or, incorporate some new technology, do a migration, grow a bunch of sales, roll out a bunch of new stores, whatever the thing might be. And you go, okay, in order for us to get there, we're going to need 40 headcount. And what you realize is, in your mind, you're like, we're going to start hiring for 40 people right away. And when you look at where the budget's allocated, it's like, no, you're going to get 10 people in the first quarter, 10 headcount in the second quarter, 10 in the third, 10 in the fourth. And that's when you have to start going, okay, I have to adjust my forecast, my planning, all sorts of things based on the timing of budget. And that's just as important as the volume or the dollar number budget. So take all those things into consideration. All right. Next thing on the list I have is skills. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. If you've ever listened to the podcast a lot, we've talked a lot about, growing technical skills, about increasing your knowledge about stuff. But I think especially where we are in our industry right now, where, cloud is becoming more of a stabilized type of technology. AI is becoming this new, innovative, where it could go type of technology that we're not exactly sure. It could go in a lot of different directions. This is a time in which you really almost want to go back and double down and rethink, like, what kind of skills do I need to work on, or do I want to work on, that are going to help you, right? That are either going to help the business and hopefully put you in a very good light. They're going to help you be able to get promoted into some bigger role if that's what you're looking for. If there's an opportunity for you to take existing skills you have and adapt them, adjust them, shift them left or right. to this newer paradigm that's out there, whether it's in AI or security or, building applications or business modeling, whatever it might be. Now is a great time to start thinking about how am I going to go about doing that? And, you could be asking your management team for some funding to be able to go do some training, to go to events, those types of things. You maybe wanted to look at what you can do on your own, so that you've got a little more control of it. There's all sorts of really great training out there. But again, this is, again, as I mentioned at the end of the year, we are very much at the beginning of a new kind of inflection point for the technology industry, potentially, a new era, something, sort of decade-long plus type of era. So this is very much something that you want to be thinking about what new skills, and again, they don't all have to be technical skills. They can be business-related skills. They can be, human interaction skills. How well do you present? How well do you network? How well do you, work on something else, right? But think about that and make that a priority for yourself. Okay. The next thing I had on my list is actually prioritization. I said, the first couple of things you want to make priorities. Do you understand, are you making your health better? Are you making that a priority? Are you making your skills a priority? Do you understand budgets? Because that's the prioritization of money. But I think from a bigger perspective, the fourth thing on that list is prioritization. And this is really, do you understand the priorities at a couple of different levels? Do you understand the priorities of your entire business, right? So if you had a chance to sit for 10 minutes with your CEO or, sort of the executive staff, or the leadership team, and you said, hey, what are our priorities for our business? And you wanted them to narrow them down to, hey, like, what are the 3 or 4 most important things, right? We're going to work on dozens of things, but what are the most important things that are important to you at a full company level? You want to understand those things, right? And not every business is going to be the exact same thing. You would think every business's priorities would be, grow revenue as much as possible, or increase customer count, or deliver great products, or whatever those things may be. But they're going to vary depending on the business, right? In some cases, the priority for the year is to get their financial house in order, right? Like maybe some situations have come up in which, they struggled for a couple of years or a couple of quarters or whatever, and they have to do some financial management, right? So cost cutting, or just being more active about certain things. In some cases, the priority is going to be innovation. In some cases, so in a lot of cases, it's going to boil down to, can we increase revenues? Can we reduce cost? Can we reduce risk? But you want to kind of have a sense of like, what does the leadership team think is important? And again, it's typically your companies are going to communicate this to you, but make sure you have an understanding of it. Make sure you ask questions about it. You may not necessarily have a chance to ask a question to the CEO directly, or the CIO, or whoever it is. But as high up in the organization as you can, make sure you have an understanding of what's important to those people, right? The next level is you understand what are the priorities for your group, right? And the thing you're looking for here is really kind of 2 things. What does your manager or your leadership lay out as important? What do they think is the most important? And then the second thing, and this is as important or more important, is can you draw a direct line between what they think at the group level is important and what are the most important things at the top level, right? And if you feel like you've got a big mismatch, maybe not a small mismatch, you might say, well, when I listen to our CEO, we work in some group doing something, maybe, for example, let's say you work in customer support, right? I'm just using that as an example. They might not say that customer support is the most important thing for the company, right? But they might say that, brand affinity, making people want to work with the company, or increasing revenues, or whatever. And that's where you sort of go, okay, well, what would be the things that would increase our revenues or drive, greater customer loyalty? Well, delivering great customer service is probably going to be part of that, right? So you want to at least be able to make a connection between what you work on, even if it's not explicitly called out, and what that's going to be, right? And if you don't, that's when you should sort of ask some questions of like, hey, are we working on stuff that is going to roll up to that big thing, right? And then finally, you want to think about your, at a personal level, what are your priorities? How are you going to prioritize the day-to-day stuff that you're working on with the things that are going to be most important to your boss, or going to be most important to your boss's boss, right? And you want to make sure, and this is always sort of an interesting sort of challenge. It's a time balance sort of challenge of, you want to make sure that you're working on something that is both helpful to the business is something that is going to make your boss and your team look good, as well as something that, you can feel proud about, but at least as importantly is something that your boss could go to his peers and say, look at what Sam or Mary or somebody did, right? And how it's helpful, right? That's how, that visibility, that awareness, that sort of interconnectedness are the things that are going to help you get like promoted and, and raises and all that kind of stuff. So you really want to think about that prioritization and that alignment of prioritization, company level, group level, individual level. Okay. Next thing on the list is networking, right? So this is a really simple thing. It's a difficult thing always to sort of clarify and so forth, but it's really important at the beginning of the year is once you start to get a sense of what are the priorities for the company, what are the budgets for the company, those types of things, what are the goals for the company, is to make sure you start networking with the people that look like they're going to have the biggest impact on those things, right? And the reality is, every company, every job has a level of importance to it, but there are jobs that are going to be more important. They're going to have greater visibility. They're going to have greater stress and complexity to them. And you want to figure out, how do I get aligned to those? How do I have awareness with those people? How do I network with them just to see like maybe there's opportunities for you to learn from them, for you to contribute to what they're working on, even if they're not necessarily your group. Maybe it's a side project that you can work on. Maybe you have some skill sets that they could benefit from that they don't necessarily know about, right? And so this is a great time at the beginning of the year because not only is it good for you to have visibility, but to be quite honest with you, everybody at the beginning of the year, when they start to get their goals for the year, the goals seem in 99.9% of the cases that I've seen in companies that I've worked for, they're going to be bigger than the year before. And in many cases, people are going to look at them and they're going to go, how in the world am I going to reach that goal? How am I going to attain that goal? They want us to do 100% growth. They want us to do 40% growth. They want us to do 50% more than last year, but they're going to cut our budget by a third from last year, right? Like, how are we going to do these things? And so there's a lot of people who, without specifically calling out and saying it, are pretty nervous about how they're going to meet what the year look like. They're nervous about, how am I going to do this? How am I going to support my team? How am I going to deliver what the business wants? How am I going to make sure that I meet my goals so that I make my salary, make my bonus, and take care of my family and all those sort of things? So there's, especially that first quarter, there's a lot of uneasiness of people, even if your business is doing fantastically well, right? Whether your business is doing great or whether it's struggling or somewhere in between, that first quarter in particular is one in which everybody is looking for ideas, right? They don't want complaints. They don't want you to, give them a bunch of, what ifs. They're looking for ideas, and they're looking for people that if you come to them with an idea, potentially, have a plan for executing it. And so it's a great opportunity, again, once you understand sort of priorities and budgets and where you align, to start doing some networking and say, hey, could I be involved and try and make things better, or try and, help reduce some stress on some people. Okay. Last two things I have on my list. We'll try and make this quick. First is just what I call justifications. And so this is where you need to start asking yourselves, okay, so you understand the priorities of the company, you understand the budgets, you're working with the people that are going to kind of, get things in line. Where are you going to see the most justifications needed, right? And what I mean by that is there are going to be parts of your business in which there's a lot of big ideas, a lot of excitement. Maybe this is AI in your business as an example, that people are like, we need to go generally in that direction. But there's a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's also a lot of promise to it, right? And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be AI. It could be whatever the most interesting thing is that you're working on in your business, or what seems like the sort of the next big step your company might make, or a new step they're going to make. Those types of things don't always get massively scrutinized because, and I don't mean by like not scrutinized, but like there's a lot of leeway given to some of those things because there's so much unknown. You don't necessarily know what success is going to look like. You don't know how long success is going to take. You tend to underestimate how long it might take or how many mistakes you might make. You tend to underestimate how much things are going to cost in some cases, especially if you don't have a set of mistakes that you've already made before to sort of baseline things off of. Or if the industry is still sort of new in doing this, you can't really look to other companies or analyst reports or anything. Those types of things get less scrutiny because, again, the upside is perceived to be more important to get right and to do it quickly than to sort of be, focused on ROI immediately. Right now, the flip side of that is the things that are more stable in your business, the things that have been around for a while, the things that are more well known are going to be things that are going to get more scrutiny. Right? How can we get more out of the dollars that we're spending on these things? What do our cloud costs look like, for example? Are we really, cloud has become pretty stable. It's become pretty mainstream. It's maybe it's part of the day-to-day way that you operate, whether it's, private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, edge, whatever it might be. Those are areas that will probably be thought of as less innovative. They're probably going to get more scrutiny, right? The next project that comes along, the next ask for funding, the next ask for headcount, you're probably going to see, more requirements for sort of ROI, because what's going on is not necessarily a need for greater scrutiny of any individual project, but what you're doing is, if you think about like squeezing a balloon, if you squeeze the balloon somewhere, the air sort of goes out in the middle and then it kind of pushes out to one side or the other, or both sides if you squeeze it in the middle. And that's really kind of what's going on is you typically have a finite amount of budgeting or a finite amount of time or a finite amount of people. And so for everywhere that you're going to have areas of less scrutiny, new innovation, new investment, new ideas, whatever, you're going to have, a squeezing of the balloon in other things. And so this is where you sort of really want to understand, am I working in an area that's going to be under scrutiny? Am I working in an area that is going to be under, kind of pressure scrutiny in terms of, hey, do this faster, do it better, keep up with the competition, create differentiation? Or am I in an area that's going to be getting more like cost justification, ROI justification, accountability justification, scrutiny? And again, neither one of these are necessarily better or worse, but you do want to have a sense of like, what kind of environment am I working in, or will I be working in? And is this changing at all from the previous year to this year? Okay. Last thing I had on my list is sort of a bigger picture thing. I have it listed as understanding the game. And what I mean by that is this is really where you want to be thinking about your industry, your company, and your industry, and maybe adjacent industries. But, are you going into 2025 in the bigger picture of what you do as a company? Is that kind of repeating what's been going on for the last couple of years? Are you going through a period of change, right? So how is technology or the economy going to impact your business or impacting your industry? And how can you start to think about, what will, 2 or 3 steps from now look like, right? So if you are in the media business, for example, media business has gone through tremendous amounts of change over the last decade plus, and it looks like they're going to continue to go through change as they try and figure out what people like, what sort of media they like to consume content in, how long content should be, what regulations might be coming along. Maybe you're working in the automotive industry and you're looking at, okay, we've got, new regulations potentially coming along with new, political parties in power. You're looking at the competitive dynamic of, what, do you sell primarily in the United States? Do you sell in Europe? Are there things happening in Europe? What trends are happening? And you could pick any industry you want to look at, but this is an important time to sort of, reflect on, ask your colleagues, ask your management, kind of how does the game work for your industry? And especially if you're younger, and you're trying to understand like, hey, I'm doing this job, but like really, how does this fit into the bigger picture of things? This is a great opportunity to read the industry magazines, newsletters, Substacks, attend events, attend meetups. But this is a great time to start really thinking about, if you don't understand it or you haven't thought about kind of the bigger picture of your industry, to really kind of try and understand the game. Because I think you'll find that the more you understand it, the more you start to think about, okay, where are there efficiencies? Where are there inefficiencies? Where could this change really unlock some new opportunity? Where could some change that's coming along really change stuff that could be impactful to your business positively or negatively? And the people who are able to think that way and then articulate the what's next, or the, both the possibilities, but also solutions, potential solutions, are the people that, again, sort of rise above just being great technicians or being great at any one skill and get looked at to help take the company to the next levels. Right. So anyways, so that's my list. Focus on health, understand your budgets, understand your skills, understand the prioritization that goes on at multiple levels of your business. Think about how you're networking with the different people within your organization, not just at your level, but hopefully levels above, so you've got visibility. Think about the justifications that are going to happen in your business, both at a high scrutiny and a lower scrutiny level, or technology scrutiny and an economic scrutiny level, and then try and understand the bigger picture of what the industry that you're in, maybe how you can have an impact on that, how the impact that regulation, economics, technology are going to have on your industry. And I think, if you use a little bit of the first couple of months of the year to think through those things and start to put some of those things in place, you can set yourself up for a great 2025. So hopefully some of this was useful. I know this is sort of the checklist that I tend to go through. I know Aaron tends to go through the beginning of the year. And, I know we've talked about this somewhat before in the previous years as we started the year, but always kind of a good refresher. We'd love to hear from any of you about ways that you go about starting the year, any tips or tricks that you find that are helpful, things that you would avoid, mistakes. Hit us up all the ways. Hit us up on social media or in the show notes, the bottom of the show notes every week, and however you reach your podcast. Or if you want to reach out to us, show@thecloudcast.net. You can hit us up on email and we'll get to you. We'll try and respond to that as quickly as possible. So thank you all for listening. Excited for 2025 to get started. Hope you're all kicking off to have a good year. Hope you're, whether you're back in the office or working remote or you're on an airplane, wherever you might be going, hope you're starting off great. Hope you're staying warm if you're somewhere cold, and hopefully maybe we get a chance to talk to some of you, throughout the year. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Excited for 2025 to get started, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.